Hi, everyone. For our next guest speaker, we have Adrian Stern. He's the co-founder and CEO of Reveel. Apart from that, he's also an ESADE MBA alumni, which I'm currently in the midst of. It's always nice to have someone from the ESADE family. Welcome, Adrian. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you,
Awesome.
but we can't see you.
Yeah, I think the video is disabled. It's on your side. You need to, I think, give me permission to activate it.
Okay.
Apologies for that. We're having our tech team check it out.
Cool. It's a pleasure to be with you guys and to be back at ESADE, even virtually.
So a quick friendly reminder to the audience, please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate on dropping them in the Q&A chat box. So are we good now? So thank you, Adrian, for being here. Can you start off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Adrian Stern. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Reveel. We're building what we call the business OS for music creators. And as you mentioned, I'm a ESADE MBA alum, class of 2018.
Oh, nice. Thank you. And can you tell us more about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm gonna start super young. When I was 11 years old, I discovered Bob Marley. And I was living in Switzerland. I grew up in Geneva. And some friends and I decided we were going to start a reggae band. So that was my sort of, my first steps in music. And the band grew. And by the time I had to go to college, I decided I'd study business so that I could manage the band. We had built a good following in Switzerland. And so it felt like the right thing to do. To the frustration of my parents, I would miss a lot of school to go record or mix our albums in the UK and California. And during the summers, instead of doing the traditional internships, I was on tour with my band all around Europe. So we, it grew pretty big. We had a good following. And so we started producing other artists from Jamaica, the UK, Latin America. And eventually, I started our own record label and managed that as well. So those were sort of my sort of bootstrap experiences in the music industry on the creative side. I left the industry in 2013, came to the US, worked in banking for a couple of years, didn't love that. And so decided to do my MBA, decided to pivot out of that. And here I am a few years later, back in the music industry, but on the tech side this time, trying to solve some of the problems I had, back in the day when I was trying to manage all these releases that we were putting out.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. Only one question: what instrument you play?
Guitar is my primary instrument.
Oh, that's great. So what were the stepping stones that led you to the creation of Reveel? And how did the idea rise? Or was it during your ESADE days, or you got it before?
Well, I guess there are several sort of points to that. The first is when I came back to studying, doing my MBA at ESADE, I got involved in the Design and Innovation Club. I was the president of the club, and I was super interested in, how do you manage creativity within sort of the business space, and how do you manage innovation? And that sort of led me down the path of, design thinking within the realm of venture building. So I did my internships in that space, and I did the last semester of my MBA at UC Berkeley, where I had an entrepreneurship class that sort of solidified my, I guess, my entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. I had never necessarily thought of myself as an entrepreneur, despite sort of these, musical and business endeavors. And that class sort of helped me, just allow myself to be, to say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So I started looking at opportunities in what I knew best, which was music. Blockchain was really hot at that time. This was like 2017, 2018. And so I started a first venture at the intersection of music and blockchain. The idea was to put all the metadata and the copyright ownership onto smart contracts in order to automate payments. And we failed miserably for the reason that the quality of metadata in the music industry is really, really poor. So the idea, I think, is valuable, and I'm sure at some point will be implemented. But you need to have quality information in order to automate payments, right? If I don't know who to pay each time a specific song is played, I can't encrypt a smart contract that's going to automate those payments. So that was the key finding that that killed our previous venture, but offered the opportunity for Reveel. And basically what we're doing now with Reveel is that through facilitating creator-to-creator business interactions, we're actually collecting the metadata around songs during the creative process and making sure that ownership data is accurate before a song is distributed.
Amazing. So can you give us a quick general overview of the creator funnel and how Reveel fits in the funnel?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll give you a quick sort of overview of how the funnel or the supply chain changed over the years, right? So before we even had recordings, you had a direct relationship between artists who were playing live for an audience. And then you started having record companies that came in between those two. And you had stores where you could buy the records, or radios that were, sort of playing the songs. That has transformed into pretty much, DSPs, digital service providers now, that own the relationship to listeners. And then you've got the labels who were owning the relationship with the creators. What's happened is that there's been democratization on the sort of creative side of the industry, right? In the sense that distributors have started to appear, right? The CD Babies, TuneCore, Believe, DistroKit, all these companies that allow pretty much anyone now to, blast music to all DSPs. And on top of that, there has been more and more what's called creator tools, which are basically services directly for creators who have made it just a lot easier for anyone to create music. These creator tools are what we call in the industry sort of the top of the funnel, in the sense that they are now sort of the first interaction that creators have with the rest of the supply chain. And they've been focused mainly on the creative side of things, right? These creator tools can be like digital audio workstations where you're actually like sort of recording the music. They can be, platforms like SoundBetter, where you can find collaborators to work with. Those types of tools. One, I'd say, subsegment of creator tools that's starting to emerge now are creator tools that are focused on sort of the business side of things, and that's where Reveel fits in. We're really looking at democratizing access to the business side of the industry and making sure that we can help creators be more professional within those creative endeavors, not helping them create more easily because there are so many tools doing that. So that's sort of how the supply chain has evolved. And what's interesting is we're seeing record labels and DSPs really trying to, buy companies up funnel, if you will, towards the creator tools in order to retain control of the relationship with creators.
So is it in the creator tools where you see the most growth in the music industry, let's say in the short term, midterm?
It's definitely an area of growth, no doubt about it. I think it's a tough question to answer like that, because the creator industry is almost different than the music industry. I mean, they're related in the sense that the better the music industry is doing, the more revenue goes back to creators and the stronger the creator industry is. But, you know, the whole VC world right now is talking about the creator economy and the passion economy, right? These are sort of hot topics. And we're seeing that there are new ways for creators to, you know, generate revenue than we used to see in the traditional, you know, sort of supply chain. So I'm not sure what the answer to that question is. I think there's definitely a lot of growth within the creator economy, no doubt about it. The way we look at it is, I think growth in the music industry will come through establishing a strong sort of middle class of creators. Mm-hmm. Because right now revenue is concentrated in the, you know, 0.01% of artists who generate most of the money. And if we're able to build a strong middle class of creators, then, you know, we're going to see obviously more quality music come out, and more opportunities for that music to generate revenue. One interesting data point is that there are $3 billion in royalties that don't make it back to artists, right? And that's because the metadata is not accurate or not complete. So it's money that we literally either don't know who to pay for or just are sending it to the wrong people. $3 billion, that could be 50,000 creators with, you know, living with, you know, $60,000 a year, right? If my math is right. So that's a, you know, significant chunk of money. So yeah, that's my answer. Definitely a strong growth area. And if I were looking for opportunities in the music space, I would go either with like really new technologies, or some of the new devices that are enabling growth in the music industry, or creator tools.
Okay, I see. So now that you touch on new revenue streams, besides artists receiving a fair compensations for their songs, is there any other ways that technology would help this artist?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. There are so many interesting avenues right now. I think one of the most exciting things that's happening, like literally today over these past couple of weeks, are NFTs, non-fungible tokens. You know, without getting too deep into blockchain technology, these are basically unique tokens that you can't duplicate, right? So that's why they're called non-fungible. And so this is enabling a whole new revenue model, which is very much that of like traditional collectibles, right? But the other night I was up until 4 a.m. Watching Blau, this like EDM DJ, sell 33 of his NFTs, non-fungible tokens, for his new album. So basically what he did is he said, okay, I'm going to release my new album to 33 people who can bid to own one of these tokens. And so the bidding went on for hours and hours, and he sold those 33 tokens for over $11 million in one night. You know, I couldn't do the math right now, but that's a lot of streams if you need to, you know, gather streams to collect $11 million. So it's a really exciting prospect, and we're seeing a lot of artists release artwork, songs, access to tickets, leveraging these non-fungible tokens. So that's one space that I think is super exciting. Perhaps another one are smart speakers and smart earbuds. I mean, we're sort of living now, or we're starting to live in the age of audio and the era of iPods, right? Or AirPods, sorry. And I think that's gonna change a lot of things in how we consume music. When we were on this prep call, Juanfer, I told you about the sort of the Alexa example, right? But the way we're interacting with music is changing with these devices. I could be listening to a song from Bob Marley and really like the guitar solo. And if I'm listening, in my Spotify app, it's really hard for me to type like, who's the guitar player, who's playing this guitar solo. That's pretty much impossible to do in the app. I can try to go find the credits, but they don't even display them. Whereas if I'm, listening on a smart speaker, it's so easy for me to say, hey, Alexa, who's playing this guitar solo? And ideally, Alexa should be able to say, you know what, this is Peter Tosh. He's a member of the Wailers, Bob Marley's band. Do you want to hear more songs with Peter Tosh on the guitar? But as easy as that is to say, the amount of information and metadata that needs to be accessible to Alexa in order to respond to that query is huge. Basically, you need to know who the guitarist is, but then who the guitarists are on all the other songs so that you can select the ones with Peter Tosh and offer that playlist as a response to the query. So that's the type of metadata that we're collecting with Reveel and making sure that artists are aware of having that data, or how important it is to have that data before a song is distributed.
So you mentioned the importance of metadata, but now we have tons of information about music credits, but this is not always right. So how can we fix this problem?
Yeah, I mean, what's really tough is that until recently, there was no real incentive to have that metadata in the digital world, right? Before, we used to have it and we would write it down in the liner notes, right? In your little booklet in the, attached to the CD or on the back of the vinyl case. But when we shifted to digital music consumption, we didn't know where to put that information. And for, a decade or more, there was no real concern around how do we make sure that information is there. And that's changing. It's changing because there have been lawsuits around mispayments of royalties because that information wasn't there. And it's changing because, as I just mentioned, for search capabilities, we want to make sure that we have that information to offer a better experience to listeners. So there's been a shift in the mindset around that information. And that's why we think now is a good time to launch a platform like Reveel, which allows for that data to be captured. Now, the real challenge is when you look at the creative process, artists are in the studio, they're smoking, they're drinking, their mind is not set on making sure that the data is correct for the music that they're creating, right? So it's about making sure that we build in the right incentives and that we automate a lot of that capture of information so that artists can focus on what they do best, which is creating. And that's sort of our philosophy around that.
Going away a bit from metadata and passing to streaming, is streaming destroying the music industry? And by that, I'm referring to singles market consumption, or is streaming the main innovation driver in the music industry? Or it could be both as well. What will be your comment on that?
I think streaming is a double-edged sword. there's no doubt that it's given a new lifeline to the music industry. It's allowing artists to have really valuable information around where their fans are, how to reach them, what songs are working best. They can get a lot of feedback from these streaming platforms. Where to book concerts, right, based on the listening patterns. On the other hand, the amount that they pay out and the royalty payout models were designed in part with the pressure of bigger labels. And so I think for indie artists, it's really hard to make a significant amount of money through the music that they create, or through recorded music and through streaming. So I think that's sort of the good side and the bad side. I don't think it's the evil, and I don't think it's the savior either. I think there are two sides to it.
So now that you touch on monetization and streaming royalties, SoundCloud, Deezer has recently announced that they would pay independent artists based on their amount of listeners rather than streams. What do you think of this? Does this make more sense to artists, composers, and songwriters?
Yeah, I think so. What it allows for is that if you have engaged fans as an artist, you're going to get more money because they're going to be spending more of their time listening to your music. That used to be pooled, and so you used to have an average of all listeners, right? And now the revenue is going to come directly on a per share basis at a fan level. And so I think for independent artists and labels, this is good news. It's going to be interesting to follow that through the next couple of months, years, to see what the actual difference is in terms of dollars paid out. But I feel like it's a necessary switch in the payout model for sure.
Totally agree. So after lawmakers in the British government recently launched an inquiry into the music streaming model and its impact on artists and labels, do you think that this law will transcend? And if so, will artists, songwriters, and composers will be more incentivized to use an app such as Reveel?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think artists should be paid more for streams. So I think this inquiry is relevant. I'm not doubting or minimizing the value that digital service providers bring, but their 30+% cut on revenues seems a bit steep for the fact that they're not really creating anything. So yeah, I'm always on the artist side, and as I mentioned, I strongly believe in building a stronger middle class of creators, and the more money goes back to creators, the more opportunities we have to build that middle class. And to answer your question regarding Reveel, for sure, the more money goes back, the more collaborations are going to happen, the more creation is going to happen, right? It's sort of like a flywheel, and they feed into each other. So what we're seeing is that revenue from indie artists has gone up 32% in the past year. Collaboration has gone up 36%. And now we're seeing every single day 60,000 new songs being distributed. So it's a huge amount of content. There's more money for indie artists. they're collaborating more, and it's you know, all that just feeds each other. And that's creating a real need for these folks to manage the business side of what they do, of their creative work. And that's where we hope to come in. So the answer is yes, I think it does increase the incentives.
Thank you, Adrian. I think we have some questions from the audience. Sure. I'll pass the mic to my friend Juan, who's going to ask for them.
Sure.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been very interesting. And so we have a question from an attendee that asks about the value of users' music metadata. How much he refers to how much value, and how to know the value of what listeners listen to.
That's a really good question. I guess there are two ways to look at that. You know, and first I'll quickly break down what metadata is, because when we talk about metadata, we talk about what's called objective metadata, which basically means, you know, the who, what, where, when behind the song, right? And so within that, we break that down into two sides. There's ownership metadata and attribution metadata. And so on the ownership side, the value of having that information, right, is huge, because payments, you know, depend on this information, right? So just to give you an example, for a song, you want to know who owns, you know, shares of the pie for the recording, and you want to know who owns shares of the pie for the publishing, for the composition, and all of that is the ownership data. Then there is attribution data, which is sort of what I was talking to around, like, who's the guitarist, right? Sort of these credits. And that's super important for creators in terms of building their reputation, right? So if you're a songwriter and you get, you know, to work with, you know, Madonna, having your name in those credits is what's going to allow you to get the next gig and build your career. And so when we look at the value of that metadata from a qualitative perspective, for creators, it's huge, because it's financial and it's reputation. And so credits are really the basic element of how creators, most creators, unless you're like the top line, the superstar, most creators, you know, make a living. However, it's quite difficult to put a dollar amount on it, specifically on a song level, because, you know, it's hard to judge whether a song is going to be a hit or a flop. And so doing that just becomes really hard.
Perfect. Thank you. We have another question from Maurice and Rafael concerning your history with blockchain and how you think that musicians or creators can benefit from NFTs in the short and long term.
Yeah, I mean, in the short term, I think it's a great way to experiment and to get a sense for how strong your fan base is, for how engaged they are, for their willingness to pay. These are all, you know, things that you can sort of test out as a creator by exploring with NFTs. You can also make money, which is great. But, you know, obviously Blau has a huge fan base. And so that's why he was able to sell those tokens for 11 million. If you're a smaller artist, you know, you're probably not going to make that much money. But I think it's a good way to experiment around how strong your fan base is, what's their willingness to pay. So that's one thing. In the long term, what's extremely interesting about NFTs is that within the smart contracts, you can establish different rules, right? So one of the typical rules that we're seeing encrypted in this is that whenever that non-fungible token is going to be traded, passed on to someone else, purchased by another collector, if you will, a percentage of those proceeds go back to the artist indefinitely, right? And so that means that if I generate an NFT for my new album, Juanfer, you buy it for $10, and then in a year you sell it to Juan for $100. If I have that rule in place, I'll have made the $10 initially, but then I'm going to get another 10% for that sale of 100. So I'm going to make another $10 whenever that is sold, and so on, right? So I think there are super interesting layers to how an NFT can be beneficial to artists.
All right, perfect. There are no more questions from the audience at the moment.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Let us know if you ever come to Barcelona again. Here you have your house, Esade, and we will love to take you out for some lunch. So please let us know.
Sounds good. Let's definitely grab some tapas next time I'm in town. Hopefully that'll be possible soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Thank you, Adrian, again.
Sure. Take care.
Yeah.